Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Good morning, I'm Jeff Kellam. Welcome to this edition of Encounter. In the fall season, a lot of faith communities, especially churches, begin looking at the stewardship season, considering the staffing needs of the church or an aging and sometimes rather impressive building that needs to be taken care of. But more important than that, looking toward mission and ministry in the coming year as churches begin to think about their budgets. We're not going to be talking about the stewardship of time, talent, and money, which is a common theme during this season, but today we're going to be talking about a different kind of stewardship, a stewardship of the earth, we might say. I found among the Bibles in my house, and my grandson is always so impressed with the number of Bibles I have. Papa, why did you have all these Bibles? Well, there are different translations and so on. This one is called the Green Bible, and it instead of being a red letter edition where all of the words of Jesus are in red, every reference to the environment, whether it's going up on a mountainside or a reference to the skies or the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, they're all printed in green. And there's a substantial amount of green ink in the scriptures because the earth is the Lord's. And the stewardship of the earth is a central belief in a lot of the theology of what we as Christians and other folks within the Abrahamic traditions believe. So we'll be talking about that today, and our guest is Chris Berger. Chris has been a county supervisor.
County legislator.
Yeah. And has also been on the adjunct faculties at SUNY Broome and Binghamton University. Yeah. He has worked with Opportunities for Broome and Weatherization, and that was an inaugural program.
Yes.
Yeah.
First one in the country.
And then he's also known for, at your house, you have zero waste, and you've had zero waste for a couple of decades.
Since '92.
Wow, that's impressive. And zero fossil fuel footprint.
At least for our house.
Okay.
Our transportation is still a little bit of an embarrassment.
I noticed the limo up front. It's actually not a limo. I shouldn't kid about that. Here's what, Chris, got me thinking about today's program. I happened to run across this news item. Oklahoma has invited all its residents to participate in a statewide initiative of prayer for the oil industry, which will culminate October 13th, in Oil Field Prayer Day, marked by a special breakfast event in Oklahoma City. The governor declared the prayer day with an executive proclamation, quote, "Whereas Oklahoma is blessed with an abundance of oil and natural gas, and Christians acknowledge such natural resources are created by God, Christians are invited to thank God for the blessings created by the oil and natural gas industry and seek God's wisdom and ask for protection." So what do you think about that?
Well, I have to admit, when you called me first and mentioned that, I couldn't believe it. But then I Googled it, and actually, quite frankly, what I first came across was a church that was kind of engaged in this prayer for the oil fields, and a lot of it was centered around praying for the workers who were suffering in a depressed environment, because as we all know, the fossil fuel industry has been going down, taking a big hit economically. So that seemed perfectly fair. You could certainly have a lot of solidarity along those lines, a care for a workforce that is part of a declining industry, as we've experienced really throughout our history, where industries grow and then decline, and then it always seems to be the workers that suffer, isn't it?
Right.
But then that took me to the link where the governor issued this proclamation, and that's where it sort of got kind of weird, because and this is what's typical when the politicians take the God's name in vain, right? It turned from a concern for the workers to, as you say, we invite all Christians to thank God for the blessing created by the oil and the natural gas industry, and seek his wisdom. Well, I'll resonate with that. We certainly need wisdom. And then ask for protection. And it's all about the oil field, all about the industry itself. And that gets pretty grotesque.
Yeah. So, there's the theology of prayer. It would be interesting to see how God counts the votes on those who are praying for the oil industry and those who are praying for more renewable resources, praying perhaps that the state might turn more towards solar or wind energy. Maybe, I don't know how God counts votes for prayers, but the underlying intention is, if you look at the workers, I understand the employment issues, and some correspondent of mine had said, well, that's a tough call, because I do have compassion for those. Sure. We went through the same thing in West Virginia and in Pennsylvania with coal fields and mining, the mining industries. The theology of prayer is one thing. The theology of the environment is another, of being taking care of the good earth and not using up all the resources and looking toward clean energy. This is a theological issue.
Well, exactly. I think the overarching call is of the Bible, quite frankly, and I was tickled when you brought your green Bible and I brought my green Bible.
You have yours too.
Because you're right. I mean, the Bible, for those who have eyes to see, can see a lot of ecological theology in the Bible itself, and the overarching theme is, yes, this is God created this earth, and we're called to take care of it, and starting right from the first chapters of Genesis, where God created the earth and called it good. I mean, He didn't just create it, but He called it good. And so when God calls something good, to me, that means I should hold it in reverence and take care of it. Yeah. And to me, that's the overarching message of the Bible as it relates to God's creation.
Well, and this whole idea of stewardship, that is having something that we do not own, but we are given to take care of.
Exactly.
And so how we take care of it, not only for ourselves in terms of our own conscience, but also for future generations. Folks look forward to their grandchildren, great-grandchildren, having the same, being able to sing for the beauty of the earth as we do today.
I think it's important, though, to not only think of it in human terms, because it seems like a lot of churches and think of religion, it's very human-centered. And I think it's important to get away from that and really be earth-centered, of which obviously humans are a part of it, but we're not center to it.
Yeah. I think looking at ourselves as the center of the crown of creation was the old theology that led to our being able to exploit anything we want because God gave us control of it.
Well, and it also informed us when the Earth was the center of the universe. You go back.
Yeah,
it was all about us, wasn't it?
Right. Yep. And it still is in many ways, certainly. Yeah. Well, the implications for this, for churches and for any communities of faith, this ranges from everything from the local congregation and its people to the denominational structures or administrations that have the stewardship of the church's resources on a broader level, investments, for example. But let's begin with the local congregation. Now, you in your own home have worked very hard to manage your resources and the resources of the community as it applies to local residents. What about a church? What's the responsibility of a church to take care of itself and to be careful of the earth?
I think the church should have that same conversation, just as we as a family thought long and hard, actually starting with the first Earth Day, when there was a lot of protests against the government, what the government should be doing more and industry should be doing more, and not that we were disagreeing with any of that, but we were saying, well, don't we as individuals have some responsibility as well? And that's when we started thinking, well, what's our biggest impact on the environment? Well, it's the waste we produce and the energy we consume. And we started at that time, 1970 actually, to work at that. So, I mean, it was a journey. But I think to get to your point, I think that's the same conversation that churches need to be having too. And certainly a lot of denominations now have lifted up creation as something important and to be taken care of. But when you do that, it's important that you practice what you preach, as it were. And so churches need to be discussing, well, what is the energy footprint of their facilities? How much waste are we producing? And that's certainly a conversation that we've had in our church, our local church, and I'm sure others. Churches.
Well, it's everything from styrofoam cups for the coffee to
all our practices.
The heating system that may be pumping heat through these ancient stained glass windows up to the outside.
Exactly.
So to do an energy assessment of your local facility would be a first step.
And those services are free. I mean, there's nothing to stand between a church who has the desire to go out, and that's actually one of the first things that they should do. They should get that energy assessment, and that'll give you a priority list of what things to tackle first, because given the reality of church finances and so forth, we recognize that you can't do everything all at once, but that energy assessment will give you a priority list, basically.
Right. I like the way you said that, if it begins in your home and you're taking care of your recycling and all that kind of thing, that it does make sense that when you go into that church building or that synagogue, that you also look at the waste in the kitchen and all the different levels.
Church is my extended family, so it's just a logical progression.
Yeah. So that's one thing, and the other piece is if you go to the denominational level, we've discovered, I was doing a little bit of research for today, just looking up the idea of disinvestment from fossil fuels, and discovered that a lot of denominations are kind of lagging behind. Some are lagging behind, and some have taken the lead. Certainly, the Pope made it clear that the Earth was.
In his letter, Francis' letter.
Well, do you have the name of that letter?
I did here somewhere. Yeah, it's on care for our common home.
And it goes. If you Google it,
it's a wonderful document.
It's all there, and it has all the different dimensions. I looked for a piece just to quote as we talked about that. One section is called "The Light Offered by Faith." Given the complexity of the ecological crisis and its multiple causes, we need to realize that the solutions will not emerge from just one way of interpreting and transforming reality. Respect must also be shown for the various cultural riches of different peoples, their art and poetry, their interior life, their spirituality. If we're truly concerned to develop an ecology capable of remedying the damage we've done, no branch of the sciences, no form of wisdom can be left out, and that includes religion and the language